The immigrant dream, is it truly a dream or is it the best option among difficult choices?
It is a dream, not without foregoing a lot of things. I wouldn't call it sacrifice, I would call it a transformation. The dream is dependent on who is making the move, when they're making the move, and their mindsets while making the move.
Are most people actually leaving their countries to grow or simply escaping broken systems?
It got to a point where my mom was actually stuck in Nigeria and she wasn't posted out. And so then that desperation came. I was studying medicine in Ife. There were all these strikes. So at that point, it was the dream to get out of the country again.
We're opening up a raw, unfiltered conversation. No assumptions, just truth. I'm joined by Zipporah, Dimka, and Titilayo, Ameh, two powerful voices with real immigrant experience. Together we unpack the journey, the wins, the waits, and the question many avoid. Is it truly worth it?
I do understand there is a lot of negativity that comes with, I'm going to move in January, by February I'll get a job, by March I'll buy a house, by April I would buy a Bugatti. You give yourself time. The dream isn't to move and suddenly make it. It's to move and transform your mind.
From a mental health perspective, what do you think immigrants sacrifice emotionally that people rarely acknowledge?
They tend to isolate. There was this stigma in Nigeria of like, you don't say your business because, a demon or something will catch it and then... Your pastor is not necessarily a trained therapist. By talking about it and bringing the self-awareness to it, because your right brain is your emotional, your left is your logical. So when you talk the emotions and you tell the story, you integrate. And so it releases the power of that. And therefore you can respond to a situation rather than react.
This seems like a lecture already.
Honestly.
So what is black tax?
A cultural responsibility that is forced upon you.
There's a part of it that is more obligatory, which sometimes can build a certain resentment.
Is it actually obligatory or is it actually compulsory?
You get to a point where you actually think, actually this is a choice.
Mm-hmm.
For millions of people across the world, leaving home is seen as the ultimate path to opportunity. But behind the success stories are sacrifices people rarely talk about. So today we'll ask a difficult question. Is the immigrant dream truly worth the price? And we have amazing guests to actually, dive into this topic and do justice today. So we have Zipporah.
Hello.
And of course we have Titilayo. How you guys doing?
I'm good.
Has 2026 been?
Well, let's just say I have to go and beat some prophets and pastors, but it's been great. It's been great so far.
All right.
Yeah.
And you, Titilayo?
It's been good so far. I mean, a lot's been happening in the past few weeks, but so far so good.
Okay. So when you hear the term or the word immigrant, what comes to mind?
So I thought about this before, and there's something about the term that doesn't always sit well with me because...
Why?
I guess it's the technical term for what it is, moving countries. I guess I see myself more as like a global nomad, like an expat in a sense. There's something about the word immigrant that triggers this sense of a minority or less than in some kind of way. But I understand the terminology.
All right. And you?
I don't mind it, actually. Although I see where you're coming from, Titi, I understand that. But I feel like two truths can be, can exist in one thing. So yeah, it has been a term that has been used over time. But I still feel like a global citizen, an expat, is a more beautiful word to be used as opposed to an immigrant. But I don't mind it looking at the historical aspect or if you're checking a thesis or writing something. So I don't mind it, but there are certain things that come with, immigrant as opposed to expat, So I understand where you're coming from, but I don't mind the word, but yeah. I think
you mentioned something very important here. Something that comes with being an expat or an immigrant, as you call it, which I think that's what we're having to talk about today. But let's quickly look at the immigrant dream. Is it truly a dream or is the best option among difficult choices?
Thank you for that question. When you told us we're going to have this particular session, I really thought about a lot of things. It is a dream, right? And it is not without foregoing a lot of things. I wouldn't call it sacrifice. I would call it a transformation. So I feel like you're moving from one aspect of life to another. And the difficulty that comes with that could be seen as a phase. You know, I came here in 2008, I think. Came here in 2008. My mom came here in 1998. So, yes. So looking at her perspective and my perspective, two different things. So her dream at the time was, I need to get money. I need to send money home. We need to do this. As opposed to me coming in 2008, it was just like, my mom is here. What's going to happen? I go to uni. I come back. I want stability, my mental health, all of those things they're checking in. So as I grew into an adult and got a job here, my own dream, as opposed to her own dream, were two separate things. So I would say the dream is dependent on who is making the move, when they're making the move, and their mindsets while making the move.
So to someone, in Africa or in any other part of the world looking to relocate for better life or greener pastures, as they call it, what would you say actually?
I would say get it on, go for it.
Is it worth it?
It is worth it. And there are, they said the crown was made in a cave. There are times that will feel like, what's going on? I need to leave now. But if you leave at the moment or at the point of your transformation, you're never going to move forward. You see, I do understand there is a lot of negativity that comes with, I'm going to move in January. By February, I'll get a job. By March, I'll buy a house. By April, I would buy a Bugatti. So there are those things that limit us. You give yourself time, as opposed to opening your mind to transformation. So I'll say the dream isn't to move and suddenly make it. It's to move and transform your mind.
I think we'll talk about that transformation in course of the show. But let me talk to Titilayo here. Are most people actually leaving their countries to grow or simply escaping broken systems?
Like you said, it depends on your circumstance. So for me, my parents were diplomats, so I didn't have a choice. I had to leave the country and follow them wherever they went. But then it got to a point where my mom was actually stuck in Nigeria and she wasn't posted out. And so then that desperation came because I was in university at the time. I was studying medicine in Ife. There were all these strikes that were going on. So at that point, it was the dream to get out of the country again. So in my circumstance, yes, it was greener pastures, going abroad and having better education in the sense where there's more consistency and stability. So for me at the time, it was the dream to get out. And so eventually when we did get out, it came with other consequences because obviously you have to adjust, you have to transition to a new culture and try and assimilate into the place. But at the time, it was better than the circumstance that I was in. However, for some other people, you might actually have a really good situation that you're in. It's just, if say you're moving towards education and you want something more stable, I think that's where a lot of people tend to want to relocate. If it's for a career, it depends on the type of package that you get and how you're going, I would say.
When I asked that question, something came to mind because in Nigeria, because of course we're Nigerians, there's this Japa syndrome. People want to escape the country. In Africa, other parts of Africa, I would want to mention it, maybe Ghana, Uganda, and the likes. There's this crave to want to leave the continent, to want to leave their countries in search of better lives. So the question is, are they simply leaving because they want to grow, or they are escaping, in quotes, broken systems back in Africa?
Well, it's like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? If you're leaving because fundamentally you need more money to feed yourself, to feed your family, then there's that aspect. So you don't really have the luxury as such to be thinking about growth, if that's your circumstance. But if you're leaving, you can leave for both, I think. When you get to the place that you're getting to, depending on what it is, if you're trying to set up a business or you're trying to further yourself, then the growth comes in. But I think a lot of times, I don't know if it's just Japa as in let's just get out of here. A lot of it is is necessity, because I remember in university, and obviously I traveled and been in all these different countries young. Then I went to university in Ife, and it was tough. And I was like, man, this is this is different to what I was hoping for. So, of course, at the time, it was more, I just want a better circumstance, better way of studying. And then when you get overseas, then, you look at the opportunities.
So if you had, will I say, the same opportunities you had in your country of origin, would you still have left?
So now in my mid-40s, I miss Nigeria a lot, right? Because you live overseas and then you have to code switch, so to speak, and assimilate and try and blend into other cultures.
Okay.
And so I miss being in Nigeria and being with Nigerians. If I look back, if the educational system was good and I was guaranteed that I would finish university in the 5 years, as we said, because I was meeting people who were there for 7 years, 8 years, 10, then I would think, okay, potentially, yes, if the circumstances, because Nigeria is sweet, whichever way you look at it, it's just the difficulty of the infrastructure. So I would.
Z, you left quite younger, right?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, so looking at, when I went through your profile, you had a very smooth, ride in terms of your career. Worked with airlines and all of that. So if you had that same opportunity that you had here in the UAE, back in Nigeria, if you have it now, would you want to keep it, the one you have in Nigeria, or would you want to leave?
That is a very good question. Hearing Titi say, now that, she's here now in her life and Nigeria is beautiful, man. It's just amazing to be around, what you've known all your life. So knowing what I know now, would I do it? Absolutely. But just for the opportunity to get to understand other people and be exposed to other cultures, because nothing educates you more than meeting somebody. You can't read some things in a book. So looking at it now, I would make the move. I would not stay because I would like to expand, as I would say, and I would have still made the move. I wouldn't stay in Nigeria.
When we leave our countries of origin, right, something happens, right?
Yeah.
And there are consequences sometimes, and we can't sit here and have this conversation without talking about them. So when the person leaves their country, not just Nigeria, another part of the world, and goes to another country for better life, what do you think most persons should be aware would be, the issues they might face or the consequences? Or the effects? I think let me use the word effects.
It's a good question. I think people underestimate how much you miss the little things as well as the relationships. So, with my own family, I could tell when my dad was, say, overseas. He's from Benue, and he's an Idoma man, like a real Idoma man. So he missed the food, he missed the culture. And you could see how that took him to a difficult place, right? And so sometimes you don't really think about the losses and how to grieve the losses, that you've left behind. Mm-hmm. So I would say just taking the time to acknowledge the fact that it's a massive change. You kind of get on with life, and because there's things that you have to do, but to be aware of what potentially your losses are and to acknowledge that. It doesn't mean you sit in it, but the self-awareness, because if you block it, then there's issues that come with that later on, I would say.
Okay. And to Z, is it because, again, when I look at you, I look at someone that actually built a community here in the UAE.
Yeah.
So you built that for some time.
Yeah.
So from your experience and what you do, is it truly possible to belong in a place that you had never really born or was never really home?
So first of all, shout out to Black women in Abu Dhabi. When I started that group, mind you, my mom is here, so my family is here, and my own story of belonging might differ from the next person or from the next, nationality or from the next group of people. So I would say that two truths can be existing in one thing. You might heavily miss where you're coming from. You might never fully belong as you did in your previous environment, but then in a new environment, you can create systems that work for you. You see, so in my community, for example, there's over like 30 different nationalities spanning across, Africa and America and all of that. So I don't see a situation where a woman comes into the group and, oh, she's displaced. I just see systems being put in place for her. She comes into the group, oh, welcome, welcome, welcome. And then next is, where can I get my hair done? Oh, sis, if you want to get your hair done, this is where we do it. Oh, I want to learn about finances. Oh, there's this lady, Lydia. By the way, shout out to Lydia. She's very good with financial systems and all of that. She could put you through. Oh, okay, I really want to go for a wedding. I want to do this. Oh, there's Elizabeth. Elizabeth made this dress, by the way. So it's never about, you can't replicate what you left, but you can form new systems. I believe in systems. You can put in place how to, thrive in a new environment. And shout out to UAE. There are different nationalities here. And how we survive here is by shared respect. Shared respect. It's not every time you get the same thing you left. But if you keep thinking back to, this, that, you might not get pounded, yeah, but you get pounded, yeah.
Okay.
You get what I mean? You get what I mean?
I like that.
Yeah.
So it's based on mindset. And back to the question you asked, Titi, if there was anyone coming or moving anywhere in the world, I would tell them, please throw away the timeline. By January, I must. By February, I must. By this, you must not do anything. Put systems in place. Look for someone who is good with finances in that city and let them teach you. Look for someone who's good with, where to go eat, where to do this, where to do that. And you will thrive better. And if the downtimes come, which they will, please don't look at it as something that is permanent. Look at it as, oh, this is a phase. It's hard, but we're going to get through it.
Zia, I would stick with you
Yes.
because you said something very catchy.
Yes.
But you know that when we leave Africa in search of greener pastures or in search of better life,
Yes.
or opportunities,
Yes.
there seems to be this pressure
Yes.
back, home. And you're telling someone that when it comes here, you shouldn't put timelines to, setting achievements, right? You should just take it one step at a time. But don't you think that probably there is this societal pressure
Yes.
that should be talked about and dealt with? So someone leaving whatever part of the continent in Africa and coming maybe to Europe, to Asia, wherever he's going to in search of better life, should be aware that, okay, I don't go with the same pressure, but I come here and face life, one step at a time. Because whether we like it or not, that pressure is there. So what would you say about that?
You're talking to a Zipporah that has grown over the years. So personally, at this point in my life, I have dissented a lot of voices. So I don't listen to other people who haven't lived the life I've lived. So that's step one. However, not everyone is like me. So just in case someone is coming and they're struggling with the pressures of, if I'm hearing you correctly, I'm hoping you're talking about sending money home.
We will actually get back to it. We'll get to that.
Okay, so what pressures exactly are you speaking of?
People come, to, I will not use just because people watching this across the world.
Yes.
People leave their countries and they come with pressure of, I must make it in 1 year. I must get those cars. You mentioned it rightly in your explanation. I must get the cars.
Yes.
I must start building the mansions back in Africa. So they come with pressure. And you rightly said, when you come to any country, try to settle down, try to take one step at a time. But they leave countries thinking that it's actually so green or greener here or in any part of the world they go to. So to that person watching this, that's trying to make that step or take that leap, what should the mindset be though?
I can't say, oh, don't be pressured. Don't worry. No, I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say that you should have a growth mindset. You should think of it as a land of me trying to enter the place and understanding what it's about, as opposed to the land of me making it. And making it looks very different to different people. For me, making it could be, listen, I got my 5,000 dirhams every month. I got my internet. I'm going home. I have light. I have water. Amazing. This is it. I have arrived. I'm not listening to anybody. For someone else, it could be, I have 30K. every month, I'm not really surviving, I'm struggling, I'm this. So making it could look different to different people. Now it's all about your own self. Do you want to pressure yourself with stress, get high blood pressure? By the time you're, my age, you're 36, you're struggling, you're sweating when they're asking you 2 or 3 questions? Or do you want to decenter all of that and say, okay, you know what, as an individual, things might not be the way they should be all the time, but I am willing to press through regardless. So for anybody coming or going to greener pastures, and greener pastures is just a term I do not like. Because
why?
Because it's it makes it seem like where you're living is heavily, or it makes it seem like you couldn't make it where you were. There might be issues with infrastructure, as Titi said earlier. However, you are a being of possibilities. Just because it didn't happen here doesn't mean it will happen here, and doesn't mean it won't happen here. Mindset of, okay, it's not happening, I need to move, as opposed to, it's not happening, I'm going to end it all. And I'm saying this with a heavy heart, because I've had people who really literally gave up because one thing wasn't working, or because the pressure of, hey, see, I used to earn this and now I'm going to be a waitress, I can't do it. People are afraid to fail. People are afraid of change. People are afraid of, okay, this is not working. Let me put more systems in place. Let me go this direction, right? People see the second direction or another direction as failure. You see someone, I was a flight attendant. Immediately when I got fired, I became a waitress. And I was serving people who were coming, my colleagues who were on board with me. I was serving them, would you like some water?
How did you feel about that?
At that time, knowing what I know now, I'd have just taken it as, oh, this is not working, this is another direction. At the time, I felt so much shame. And that shame, I think that's for another podcast. But if people just realize that, hey, you know what? And that's what I'm doing for my siblings. It's okay, at this point, Etihad didn't work. They got us out, it was COVID. It's time to pivot. I'm going to be a waitress for a minute. I'm going to pay my rent. After I pay my rent for a while, I'm going to pivot. Because if you say, oh, you lowered yourself to be a waitress, that means you're looking down on that particular job and you will never get anything from it. Whatever you disrespect, can never lift you up.
This is becoming very interesting, Z, but I'll come back to you. Titi,
Yes.
In your professional opinion, okay, how can immigrants pursue opportunities abroad without sacrificing their emotional and mental well-being? And I ask this because I know you're a therapist.
Oh.
You need to have realistic expectations and adjust yourself to your season, because at every point you go through different things. And so if you're coming and thinking, it's good to be futuristic. I do think it's good to have vision and to have a plan. But really all we have is today. Mm-hmm. And so you make your plans, but then you live in the moment of today, and then you adjust to whatever is happening in the season of today. So I'll use myself as an example. When I first came out, so I did the diplomatic life with my parents, and then I decided to take my own children onto the expat life. And at the time I was married, and so I was going as a unit. And then at some point, we got separated, we co-parent now. My world changed, because then we were living in a huge house, helpers and drivers and all of that. And sort of at the peak of my career, where I was enjoying that life. And then when separation came, it was more, okay, so how do I redefine myself now as a mom of 2 teenage kids? And it was humbling, because all of a sudden I was back in a 1-bedroom flat, and a car that was, not as flashy as my first car. And the feelings of shame do come, and where you start to think, oh gosh, have I regressed in my life? But you have to adjust that mindset and really think, you know what, this is a season. You don't negate all the success that you've had from before. This is the moment that it is, but with a mindset, like you mentioned. I love what you said about you can, wherever you are, you can succeed. It's really about the mindset. And you don't don't change your values for anybody. Because opportunities will come. And as a woman, I will say there's so many opportunities that I've looked for. But there's certain things that people will ask you to do that are inappropriate, which make life easier, right? But you have to keep to your values, knowing that your mental health, your personal state matters, because at the end of the day, you're the one who's going to sleep in that bed by yourself, you know.
Okay.
So you keep your values. Make sure you have good connections. You have good people in your life that you can talk to. Yes, of course, I'll always advocate for a therapist or a coach. But whoever it is, make sure that you talk to people about what's going on for you, because you need a different lens, a helicopter view about what's happening in your life. Because when you're in it, you can be stuck in the shame and the guilt of, I haven't done this and I haven't done that. And also adjust your expectations of your family. That's a big one.
Okay. You said something very striking in your explanation about values. But there's this cliche, or there's this narrative of values don't pay the bills. All right. Values won't provide money, right? It will take care of things. So some persons would say at some point you would, those values, you just, show it aside a bit, do what you have to do. So because when you said that actually struck the chord. So to someone watching this and is at that crossroad, because I believe so much in values, is a human being without values is more or less an empty person, if you ask me. But we live in a world now where people would tell you, or people would say, most persons would say that values don't pay the bills, especially when no one is watching. Okay, so what would you say about that?
Yes, sometimes values doesn't pay the bills, but then again, it's about adjusting your expectations of what life should be. So once upon a time, I used to gel my hands all the time because it was part of looking professional and looking. But at some point, I had to decide that, okay, no, this is a luxury in life. So you adjust. And I speak as one who has been up and been down. So it's not like I'm just saying it for the sake of saying it. There are times where I literally had a loaf of bread to eat for the week, and that was it. Now I'm more plant-based, so I can eat without eating meat, so to speak. I can eat grass, as we say. But there were some weeks, I even remember one time there was a contract that was offered to me, and this would have really changed my life dramatically. But what they were asking for in terms of my soul and in terms of my values was beyond what I could live with with my alignment. And I said no. And for a whole month I struggled, but with mindset, and if you put it out there, the opportunities that will come, the right opportunities will come. You just have to believe, because if you stay stuck in, if I don't do this, then I won't get here, then the right door won't necessarily open for you. When I say the right door, alignment matters, because this is where stress comes. This is where habits come, addictions come. I counsel a lot of people who go against their value system, and then it builds up, the guilt, the shame of that. You numb yourself in a certain way, and you sacrifice yourself in a certain way, and then all these other symptoms come into your life. So it's adjusting and thinking, well, what matters to you? Do you want to be healthy emotionally, mentally? Do you want to feel like you can hold your head high? Or the alternative? I
was also stick with you, because you mentioned, some things that most persons that come to you in view of the kind of job that you do, and they come talk to you and you try to render help. So from a mental health perspective, what do you think immigrants sacrifice emotionally that people rarely acknowledge?
In general, I would say that they tend to isolate. I would say that they tend to keep things to themselves, because the standards of, like we talked about earlier, where they're supposed to be, what they're supposed to achieve. And so they don't tend to ask for the help that they really need. And this is where a lot of the...
Is the help actually available?
So this is the problem now, because you talk about help. There is still quite a stigma attached to even mental health in itself. So when I meet Africans, particularly men, I would say, there is this fear of, the fear of opening up, for one, the fear of the vulnerability. But then if it's not something that you're used to, then you're not really going to want to go to talk to a stranger about what's going on. But then we don't also have as many African therapists as we should have, really. And so building trust and being able to find someone who you can talk to can be tricky. And as they say, sometimes there was this stigma in Nigeria of like, you don't say your business because, a demon or something will catch it and then
Evil eye.
will do evil eye. Thank you. So, but these things are real.
Yeah.
And so you talk to your pastor, but your pastor is not necessarily a trained therapist. Your pastor cannot go to your inner child and dig up those things, because the thing about the inner child is that there's a part of your brain called the hippocampus, it's the memory saver. And it's where it stores your old memories and your new memories. The brain doesn't know the difference between what's real or imagined. So when you get triggered in real time today for something that happened all those years ago, you react instead of responding. What a therapist can do is to help you hear those wounds, whatever they are, whether it's rejection, abandonment, betrayal, injustice, humiliation. Those are sort of the 5 core wounds that you have. But when those things get triggered and you, in present day, it affects your relationships, it affects your mindset, it affects your health, it affects how you're able to progress in life. You need the support, professional support that can help you with that. Now, if you can't go to a therapist, because it's expensive, I don't like to use that word. I like to say it's an investment. Because
Why is it an investment, actually?
It is an investment because if you have all this pent-up trauma, wounds stored in your body, or stress, physical ailments, the amount of people who have severe back pain or have difficulty in sleep particularly, or have challenges with their mental health, whether it's high, especially post-COVID, anxiety levels have gone through the roof. Now, with what we're experiencing even here in Dubai, people are having PTSD from what happened in COVID. If you didn't talk about even just that, what was going on for you then, again, what I said about the trigger in your response cycle, your stress response cycle, it comes back again. The fears come back. It can be so debilitating that some people don't even want to get out of bed. You can go through depression. And it's all quiet, sort of, we keep up appearances, especially as Nigerians. We know how to be the life of the party and, beramole to everything. But then you go back home and you're struggling in silence. So I would say that it's okay not to be okay. Everyone has been through a struggle or a challenge. Sharing it with somebody else removes the load, and it helps to integrate your brain and release the power. There's a strategy by Daniel Siegel. It's called Name It to Tame It. So there's a part in your brain that when you actually talk about what's going on for you, it gets fired. And by talking about it and bringing the self-awareness to it, it releases the power of it, because your right brain is your emotional, your left is your logical. So when you talk the emotions and you tell the story, you integrate. And so it releases the power of that. And therefore, you can respond to a situation rather than react.
Amazing. This seems like a lecture already.
Honestly, I'm like,
but,
say more, please.
But again, you said something very striking as well, that men hardly open up. I'm a man, of course. So, and I'm a Nigerian man. And for Nigerian men outside Nigeria, immigrants, expats, how you want to call it, that struggle with opening up. Because I personally, prior to probably, let's say 2 years ago, I didn't believe I would, or I should sit with therapists and talk about my problems. I didn't see it like something I should do. I just feel like I work it out, right? But life taught me that no, you have to talk to someone, right? So I think that there has to be this paradigm shift. African men, Nigerian men need to know how to open up, talk, and try to get the help that they actually need. Right, because as immigrants, you don't have most of the times you don't have your families here extended, and we as Africans we live in a community basis. Like you have people always around you, but you now travel to a different city, a different country, a different continent where you don't have the people that so you need to always seek for help. So I needed to talk to African men with emphasis to Nigerian men on the need to open up.
Well, this really comes back to my why now, because I obviously experienced it from my own dad. Now I look in hindsight, I can understand why he behaved the way he did as I grew up. Because he didn't, in those days, there was nobody to talk to, there was no one to really share the struggles with. And so, but it drove me into this profession, because I thought if there's a platform for men to feel safe and to just talk, because the consequences affect those around you, not just your own life, but it affects families, it affects your workplace. So I would say that now we have this issue in society about masculinity, man up. And in Africa, we have masculine men in that sense, where it's you provide, you do the work, you protect. So it's really difficult. I understand. I'm not a man, but I understand. I have empathy for this idea that it's difficult to open up and be vulnerable. Because if you're not raised that way, why would you wake up all of a sudden and just say, oh yeah, let me just spill the beans? What's going on in my life? So I would say that's why I use neuroscience to explain a lot of things, because if you take away the emotions and you take away the culture and the weakness aspect of it, there's a physiological thing that is happening in your body when you talk and when you release these emotions. So I would say give it a shot, because especially in relationships, especially those who are in relationships, you see the anger, you see the addictions that come from it, because it translates itself into addictions. And a lot of times when men come to me, particularly African men, I have to help them really take away the shame, because they'll be like, I'm sure if I say this, you will think this. I'm like, look, I've heard everything under the sun, that there's nothing really to be embarrassed about. Come as you are. And it's okay to find someone safe, of course. That's important, to find someone safe. But it's okay to just say, this is where I am. Start small. You can start with a small problem. And then as you build trust, you can go deeper and deeper. But it really helps to offload, what's going on inside. Because it's what's that song? Go crazy. That's like, how does it go? But it's something about if you want to think like a man, if you want to know what it's like to be a man, come.
By Kiss Daniel, right?
Oh, yeah, that one. Yeah.
Beautiful song, because I think that men have so much pressure and so many things that they have to carry. Being, I guess, separated now, I so appreciate certain things that I took for granted when I was in my marriage, because I think, oh my gosh, he used to do this. And I would just come and say, oh, let's go and buy this and let's go and do this. And he'll be, oh my gosh, thinking about the bill and all of that. And I never had to worry about that. Okay. Whereas now, I get it. And I will never understand it from a man's perspective. But I do think that there's a lot of responsibilities that men carry that they keep quiet about, and actually when you share it and you let it go, you'll notice you're better in your business, you're better in your relationships, because you don't have it all heavy in your heart.
I'm actually grateful and happy that I'm getting to hear this from a woman. That sounds refreshing, actually. It sounds refreshing. But quickly, as we go further on the show, Zipporah, you've spent over 20 years in the UAE, and also built immigrant communities. So what has that journey, been like for you?
That journey has been, I would say, transformative, because when I started it in 2021, it was just like, hey, let's be on a boat, let's wear all white and let's chill. And then after that, it dawned on me pretty quick that, oh, wow, actually, and I'm heavily introverted. It's strange, but I am, right? So I didn't see myself as part. I was like, oh, let me create something, but I didn't know that it will heavily need me to be part of it. And I've seen different things, and I've seen, the whole cycle of people coming in, people leaving, people refusing to open up, being such in a group of some lady reached out to me. She's like, there's 360 women here. See, I just don't feel it. I don't have my people, which goes back to isolation as well. It's a hit and miss with a community. It's beautiful. Some people, I've had women say, girl, if not for this community, I wouldn't have met my girl. And they've been friends for years. And there've been people who are like, meh, yeah, whatever, man, I'm not. So it's a hit and miss. And as a community, as someone who owns a community, my mind has opened to the point where I now understand that everybody is on different levels of growth. You can't mix and match people and say, okay, all of us, let's do this, let's do that, let's do this. So owning a community, especially of expats, who've moved here and who are on different levels, has opened my mind to understand that just because there is community, the job doesn't stop there. It's Mate, this issue of isolation is so deep for me, especially what you mentioned, because I've seen some things, I've heard stories that have made me emotional over time. And in the same vein, when someone is having that breakdown, someone is like, hey girl, my birthday, listen, it's 500 per person, da, 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 da. And then someone is giving birth in the hospital. At the same time, so in my mind, I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do, please, as a community owner? Am I supposed to be all these places at the same time? So it has also taught me boundaries. It has taught me how to separate. You know how people are like, oh, I'm an empath. I'm like, no, I'm not an empath, but I hear your story and I get it. I get your story. I understand where you're coming from, but I also need to separate myself from it and understand how to carry us all along while we're going on this, beautiful journey together.
So, while running your community over the years, what has been your greatest lesson?
Oh my goodness. My greatest lesson has been to meet people where they are and don't assume anything at all. Just meet everybody at the level they meet you at and don't take anything personally. Do not take anything personally at all. And just understand that the moment you realize that I'm not her, she's not me, every other thing makes sense. And having a tribe is beautiful.
Let's just stick on having a tribe, because I think that's the basis for this conversation.
Yes.
When I thought of this topic, I wanted to, have an avenue where we can talk about the struggles expat, immigrants, whatever you call it, face, and how we can cushion those, issues, and how we can help expat or immigrant navigate the whole process. So, talking to you, that's someone that manages a very good community here in the UAE, I want to understand what's like the recurrent issues that you understand or you notice from expats.
I think, without being this is a very broad question, right? And there's not just one issue that I've noticed. I've noticed different things during the course of, so many years. But one thing I understand is people struggle to integrate properly into the system.
Why?
I would say it goes back. Now, I'm not talking about the professional line. I'm talking about in general with social settings and all of that. I would say that it goes back to the fear of being known. The fear of opening up and everyone seeing you for who you are. All the holes. Because the moment you get closer to somebody, getting closer to somebody is like holding a magnifying glass. And that's where people run away. I always tell people like, hey, you're coming close to me. Just know that, you're going to see some things that are not so pretty and some that are very pretty. But please don't run away in that process where you see something that's not so pretty. So I feel like integrating into, the whole system, understanding for a fact that you might not be here for too long, but at the moment, I'm going to commit myself to being open to getting all the love, because I once heard that you've not met all the people that are going to love you, but it's so scary, for people to really open up. And I'm saying this from a from a deep, the therapist is here, from a deep wound that's healing. People are so scared to come out and just be loved. There's that stigma when you meet somebody. Oh, what do you do? There is where they start to get how they will place you. People are not open anymore to be like, hey, you know what? Let's meet, let's talk. Without, oh, what do you do? It's always, what do you do? And then they start ranking, okay, how will I now communicate to this person? You're a flight attendant. Oh, okay. So I'm into finance. Oh, I'm a waitress. So to see different people from different walks of life just come together and integrate without the social or the hierarchical norms is very difficult in outside where you have moved from. I wouldn't say the UAE. I'm sure it's the same in Australia, same in wherever. But I find that it's so hard for people to just integrate without the hierarchies, you did this, you earned this. It's difficult.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Titilayo, I'll come to you because you're a parent and we can have this conversation without talking about raising kids as an expat or immigrant, as you call it. So from a parenting perspective, what are some challenges, migrant families face when raising children from two, different cultures or environment?
Really good question. So the first time I moved my kids, they were 5 and 3. My daughter was 5, my son was 3. And I remember feeling stuck about moving them because I was thinking, I'm going to put them through the life that I've been through. Because there are pros and cons to it. For me, it was an adventure. I loved it. I wanted to expose them to the world. But then there's also that sense in which belonging can be tricky because in your mindset, you get to that place of, okay, I'm here for a period and then I leave. And then you're here for a period and then I leave. And then you're trying to adjust to a new culture. So usually when I even support parents now, because I work with kids at the moment, and when I'm supporting parents, I will always say to them, have those rituals, have those things that, are familiar for you, that where you left the country and you're coming to a new place, have those things, because depending on the ages of the kids. Now, if they're younger, as long as they're with you, they're happy, they think, okay, mommy and daddy are there. But when they're coming to a new culture, there's so much anxiety with change because the bed that they used to sleep in is different, the food, the people. I remember when we first moved to Beijing, it was all Asian, right? There were no black people around as such. And if you met a black person, it was like, hi.
Yeah.
Hi.
Please,
nice to
hello.
meet you. Now, the thing also with being in Beijing at the time was, they wanted to touch their hair. There was a lot of staring because it was different. And then my ex, he was white. I was dark chocolate woman. And then 2 caramel kids. And it was like, what is this combination? So there was a lot of anxiety with just adjusting to a new culture. And then it was a bit of an extreme because they only speak Mandarin there. So we had to learn the language. So there's a lot of changes. So with transitioning, you have to, as we learned in COVID, put your mask on first as a parent. Like really have some good structures in place for yourself because you have these little ones to support.
What are those structures that must be in place?
So number one, again, for me, it's the self-care of the emotional awareness. So my own grief, my own loss, dealing with that and naming it to tame it. So acknowledging the fact that I've moved all the way to this new place, it's tough, right? And just being honest about that, having those friendships. So I have those girlfriends and I still had my own therapist. So even as a therapist, I keep what could be not so beautiful about talking to someone and they just listen to you about your problems and they don't talk back? So I keep my own therapist just to keep my mind sane. So I had my girlfriends and my people that I spoke to about what was happening regularly, especially when you're moving into different seasons of parenting, you need that outlet. And I would say whenever I move to a new place, you plant the seed and you let it grow. So yes, there's that sense in which acknowledge the loss and the grief, but you have to just plunge right in, get into the culture, find out what's going on, do play dates, because your children, they need to make friends. Friendships, that's the biggest thing for children, is really having that one friend. Because whenever I work with children in schools now, the goal is for them to find someone they feel safe with, that they trust, that they can bond with, because that's what helps them want to go into school. So do those play dates, go out, be out there, join, networking communities like the beautiful one you have. It's amazing because in some communities we don't have that. We didn't have that in Beijing. And so it was tough in the beginning because I had to adjust to all that. So you need a community, you need your own place where you can vent, and you need to plant those seeds and really get into the culture of wherever you are. Learn the language, try and figure out what your place is. Belonging is an interesting one.
It is.
It's an interesting one because, it really depends on who's around. Like here in Dubai, wow. The black people that I hear is amazing. I was in China. I was like, wow, how do I assimilate and find people that I trust, who I can even speak broken English to, and so I had to heavily rely on my friends overseas. So I would say that keep that familiarity whilst you're looking for, your new norm and your new people in the new place. So I would say that we're quite blessed here in Dubai in terms of, if you're talking more Africans, in terms of the community here, because there it was tricky it took a while. you have to give yourself time as well with that one.
Nice to actually get to hear that you were able to navigate it. And to be very honest, why I asked you that question, because I know what it feels like to raise kids in different worlds or different environment. It's tough, you know. And when people, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine that happens to be a recruiter. So he was saying when you want to employ somebody from another country, I think the parents will have to think about the schools and the environment, you know, moving the kids and all of that. So I think when I was preparing for this topic, so I also thought of what is it like when parents, you know, take kids or, you know, kids from different environments and they shift, and what kind of effect those shifts or those, you know, moves have on the kids. So, but it's good to know that when you have a structure, like you did say, it makes things a lot easier. But as we move further on the show, let's look at something, social media, Z, and I'll come to you because I know you're very social media savvy.
Okay.
You know. So I'll come to you. A social media selling a glamorous version of the immigrant life that doesn't reflect reality.
I wouldn't say social media is just selling the immigrant life or the expat life. Social media is selling what social media is supposed to be. Which is everything looks glamorous. No one shows you the process. No one shows you behind the scenes. Although now people are like, oh, this is what I do. But you need to set up the camera. And if you know how much mental capacity it takes to put the lights in, then you sit down and maybe at that point you start crying in front of the camera. The moment you stood up to go set it up is already a lot. It's a load on its own. It means you're acting. You're already acting. You know, we're here now. We're sat. I'm not home in my bonnet, you know. So it took a lot of effort to come here, sit here, have lights in my face, not worried about, oh my God, is my makeup looking patchy? You know, is this, how do I look in front of this camera? So in front of this camera right now, I'm sat. I'm selling something that seems, you know, I'm selling whatever you're interviewing me for. I'm selling what you're asking me. However, behind my scenes, did they see me prepping the questions when, you know, we were prepping for this? Social media will always sell everything that is not behind the scenes, no matter how you place it. So if it's someone traveling to London and taking a photo in front of, you know, should I say Primark? I don't know. I'm not from London. Or someone in Burj Khalifa taking a picture in front of a Ferrari, or someone, that mall, you know, those diving men. I think this is Dubai Mall, yeah. That's the starter pack. Or someone taking that picture, or you know, a flight attendant taking pictures in different parts of the world, and you don't know that, oh, what is she going through behind the scenes? Is she quiet? Is she isolating? Is she depressed? Nobody knows those things. So at every point in your life, understand that social media is going to social media at every point. So it's not just the immigrant dream. It's everything. It's every part of life. Social media will always sell something more glamorous.
So how do we get to understand that, okay, this is social media, this is reality? Because this is very important. Mm-hmm. People want to move to the UK, mm-hmm. for instance, and they see what happens in the UK via social media, or they have relatives or friends that live in the UK, and they see the pictures, but they don't see the struggles. Someone wants to move to the UAE, to Dubai, and sees how beautiful Dubai is, but he or she doesn't know what the struggles that people go through, right? So I think it's very important that we talk about the fact that I think social media, it's like you did say, people see the bright side without seeing the struggles. So I need people to understand that behind the glamour, mm-hmm. especially for a city like Dubai, all about, you know, luxury, glitz and glamour, what are those struggles that exist? We should be aware of those struggles, mm-hmm. all right? So, and anytime I open, because I use social media a lot, of course, I see beautiful things, and people, based on those things they see on social media, they make decisions on wanting to move. And when you see someone say, I moved to the UK, and from what I saw before moving, that was not what I expected. Mm-hmm. I moved to the US, I moved to, you know, UAE, and what I saw on social media was different from what I'm seeing now. So I think it's very important that people understand the difference between social media and reality.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what is... Okay. I wanted to say, what is your question exactly? But I think I understand what you're trying to say. And I'll say this. I like people who live in duality.
Which is?
Meaning I can cry from a heartbreak this morning and still go for brunch at 12. I love that. I love people who understand that, oh, that is a very cute Ferrari. She's wearing a cute top. But on Tuesday, she might be getting, roasted in the office for sending us a CC instead of a BCC. I like people who understand that beyond all this, there is still times where you have to come back to reality. And not everyone moving here has that mindset, right? So that's where also community or us, I speak to my little brother a lot. He is proper Gen Z. He is, I'm going to start Twitch. Yo, Z, what you think? Yo, Z, let's do this. And I'm like, you need to calm down. This Yo, Z that I'm paying for your dinner, I'm paying for this. I'm not going to have it all the time. However, immediately after that conversation, we'll take a snapshot and put it on Instagram. And people will be like, wow, they are chilling. No. So I need people to also talk to, if they're younger than 21 moving here, be like, oh boy, sometimes it's going to be amazing. Sometimes you can get a VVIP pass to go see Ed Sheeran if he comes at Coca-Cola Arena. Am I promoting Ed Sheeran? I hope not. Sometimes it feels like you're going to go to Ed Sheeran's concert. And then after that, you might go back to work and work 12 hours and it's going to just be part of your story. It's not going to be a lie. It's that at this point, I'm not going to show people the shorts and the bonnet and, the struggle, but it's okay for me to flex. I like people who enjoy life. I like seeing women especially, and men. I'm not trying to be sexist, masculinity, femininity, please. But I love when I see someone enjoying themselves to the fullest, regardless of the situation. So yes, please look at social media with plenty grains of salt, right? And don't compare yourself. Because if you're looking at social media as, oh, look at Titi went to Burj Khalifa. Yes, queen. Yes, girl. And one thing I know is, for example, Ken, you're in real estate. Imagine we're colleagues. And man, the month I just rented one apartment that is 60K and I've now shared the commission. I have 1.5 and you just closed a deal of 3 million, right? I have two choices. I either look at Ken and be like, yo, you know what? The fact I'm close to you, it means I got this. Or, look at Ken. He thinks he's something. Look at him. So you closed a deal of 3 million. What does it make you feel like? That in itself, I promise you have no... I'm happy she brought up neuroscience. If you have time, go check out what happens to your brain when certain things, positive, negative emotions, all of that. But you have no clue how your mindset shapes your future. The moment you are in proximity with someone who's seemingly doing better than you, and I say seemingly because you don't know behind the scenes. I see Ken just close a 3 million deal. Your commission is through the roof. I don't know if you're going to spend 50% of that paying your debt. I don't know if you have a car note. I don't know if you've gone and take, a credit card. And I don't know if you're going to be left with 20 dirhams at the end of that 3 million. All I know is, he has closed the 3 million deal and I'm here with my 1.5. Look at him. Or, you know what? The fact I'm in close proximity with Ken, who just closed 3 million, it means I can do the same. So if you're opening social media and you see people chilling, you're like, you know what? The fact they could do this and I'm seeing it, I'm in proximity. I can do this too. However, I'm not comparing myself to them. I understand my journey is different. When it's time, I'll wear a short skirt, go out and take a picture at Burj Khalifa. So I'm not going to tell people don't look at social media. I'm very, very active on social media. In fact, I just posted a video this morning of myself having a little dancey dance. But that doesn't mean that, in my head during the ride from Abu Dhabi to Dubai, I didn't have a lot on my mind. I did. But at that moment, did I feel cute? Yes, I did feel cute. So feel cute when you want to post that selfie, post them videos or whatever, but always have it behind your mind that two things can exist at once.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Titilayo, do you have anything to say about that? Social media?
Social media is an interesting one because we keep up appearances. And there is something of that dopamine hit that comes with social media as well. It's like you watch it and, you get that buzz. But then it also can make you spiral, actually, True. Because you're comparing yourself, with certain lifestyles and thinking what we talked about, shame and the guilt and thinking this is what it should look like. as to in reality what it is. But I think it's all information at the end of the day. Like you take what you want from it. We need it to be able to advance and to know what's in the trend and, how to advance ourselves in terms of growth. So, like you said, it's a duality, really. I think it's a duality.
We can't have this conversation without talking about black tax. So let's talk about the concept of black tax. And this is for you, Z. How would you explain black tax to someone who didn't grow up in a black community or in Africa?
I would just tell them that from Nigeria, I'm from Jos, from a small city.
So what is black tax actually?
It is a cultural responsibility that is forced upon you by people who who have been alive longer than you, by community. It's taking care. It's not a negative thing if there are boundaries. It's just you taking care of people who took care of you while you were growing up. I would say that in the most lame terms ever. It's giving back to the society that gave you.
Okay.
Right.
Amazing. It's good to know that you gave us like a dictionary-like definition.
Very diplomatic.
Very diplomatic. She was very diplomatic about her answer.
Yes.
But again, to you, Titilayo, because and of course it's the same question about black tax. I want us to understand, because as immigrants we have this huge expectation back, from our countries of origin. They need to give back, and you have even extended families you've not heard from or spoken to for years. They see you on social media and they say this guy has money and he's doing well, right?
Yep.
So there's this, you have to give back. So to someone that is not African, how would you explain black tax to that person?
It's really hard for them to understand, so my ex, for example, white British, in the beginning didn't quite understand this whole idea of the first time I took him to Nigeria. And he was like, so you have to pay for this and pay for that and pay for this. And I mean, he did it at the time, but it's hard to explain because there's a part of it that is more obligatory, which sometimes can build a certain resentment.
Is it actually obligatory or is it actually compulsory?
Good question. When you grow up, it's compulsory.
It is compulsory.
But as you mature, you move into this is obligation. And then you get to a point where you actually think, this is a choice. I get to make this choice depending on my needs and my life and yours. Because, they think that the streets are made of gold and, diamonds. And so sometimes the boundaries, you really need boundaries with this black tax thing, because there is a sense in which you want to give back because there's a lot to be grateful for, right? But the pressure that it brings in your life, always, like I've met people who are just minimum wage, right? But almost 70% of their salary is going back home to look after their families. And I think that there is a real need there. But the stress and anxiety that it causes them on a daily basis, those who live overseas say, it's a lot. So at what point do you where's the fine line in this?
I would come in here, Titi, because you said something very striking. And that is, when I talk to people, I see most persons, they live that life. So I ask the question, how are you supposed to grow when you spend 70% of what you earn back home? How would you grow? How would you advance your own life, your dreams, your aspirations, yourself? So I need to talk to people right now, of course. As Africans living abroad, how are we supposed to live in terms of this whole black tax thing? How do we change that narrative? How do we behave? I've heard people say, cut off certain persons. It's easier said than done, right? So what do we do? Because I've seen people that they lost their job this month, last month, the next month, they could not pay their bills. And I'm asking, you didn't have savings? Like, what were you doing when you were working? So I need people to understand the whole, now we've been able to establish what it is. So what does it do? And how can we, go around it, navigate the whole thing?
I think you need to have healthy boundaries. Now, we talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There is a real need back home in terms of practical. You need food, you need water, you need light, right? And you can't negate that. So it is being appropriate with it. Even if, I think the mindset is important, because sometimes you think if I give 10% is nothing. But something is still better than nothing. And if 10% is all you have to give in the moment, then give that. And if you don't have it, you don't have it. Because if you have debt and you have bills to pay and you're not keeping your own responsibilities, like your own self-care, your own health, physical health is important. Because if you get sick, how are you going to provide those things that you want to provide? So there's a point in which you say, okay, for this season, when things are good, I can give this and this. If you choose to, if you want to. It's not obligation, even though it feels like it's compulsory, but you can choose to give. And then there's a season where you tell everybody, and this, I had to do this at one point. I'm like, this year, I'm sorry, but I have to be a responsible human being. I have my own kids to look after. I can't do anything this year. But if things get better, then potentially I'll be able to provide in a certain type of way. So it's knowing where you are, knowing your capacity as a human being, and realistically thinking, can I actually do this without compromising my physical health, especially for the sake of supporting my family or my community?
Amazing. Z.
Have boundaries. And boundaries could look different to different people. For me, once your mom and dad are good, for some people, mom has sacrificed so much. For some, it's dad. From different dynamics work with different people. So have those healthy boundaries. You can't please everybody. I've had people who were, and these are practical stories, right? They were helping, they were sending money. The moment they lost their jobs, the people back home picked up and were doing just fine. So you need to understand, what am I doing with my life? And sometimes for some people, good partners help them set those boundaries, because you could be a giver, and or people pleaser, and you wouldn't know where to just have those boundaries. Sometimes good partners, therapists help you to set those boundaries. So please have boundaries. However that looks for you is, on you, but where you want to get to in, I know, to hell with the timelines, but where you want to get to in life in general. So if giving 10% or 5% is going to help you get there, please do it. Boundaries.
Amazing. And away from black tax, let's look at some statistics. Let's look at this topic. I did some research. 304 million people were living outside the country of birth in 2024. That represents about 3.7% of the world's population. This means over 1 in every 27 people in the world is an immigrant. So my question is, behind these numbers and stories and ambition, what does this number say?
It says that people are constantly moving. People are constantly evolving. Things are changing in the world. And see, the immigration thing has been from time, from the first man. They were moving from one place to another.
Why are they moving, by the way?
For different things. It could be for, it's more sustainable for some. It could be for greener pastures for some. It could be that, oh, hey, you know what? Let me cut to the chase and be real. It could be, listen, I want my kids to have a different passport. It could be, listen, when I wake up at 10 a.m. or at 2 a.m., I want to be sure that my job is still there. You know what? I want my life to be in a healthier bubble. It could be that. It could be for marriage. People move for love a lot. Don't do it.
I could tell about that anyways.
Don't do it, but people move for love.
You're saying they shouldn't do it?
I mean, before they'll say, Zipporah told me, no, do whatever you need to do. But people move for love, security, passports, better lives, people, especially men. You see a dad will be like, listen, my children, especially, from Nigeria where I come from, my children need to go to this. They'll be hustling for years to get their family out, and he'll still be in Nigeria sending money for them to be good. And I'm not saying just Nigerian men, I'm just giving a little example. But people move for different reasons, Ken.
Amazing. So still on numbers, I like numbers a lot because numbers are actually very key. So let's narrow it down to the African context. in African migration statistics, more than 45 million Africans lived outside the country of origin globally. Africans now represent about 15% of the world's immigrant population. So what does this stat tell you?
In terms of them moving into different places.
Yeah.
I think, like Zipporah said, we are transient human beings, and so we move for different reasons. Now, there's another aspect of moving as well that I think sometimes we might forget, that just because you're from Africa or you're from a certain country doesn't always necessarily mean that you feel like you're from there, or you...
How?
So, depending on how you've been raised, different personalities. So, a lot of people who meet me, they think I'm Ghanaian, or they think I'm Ugandan, or I'm Kenyan. And I'm like,
Maybe you look Ghanaian, though.
I am Nigerian. In fact, yesterday I was in the salon, and I was talking to a lady from Uganda. And I was like, but I can speak Pidgin now. Like, you know, she said, your accent does not sound anything like a Nigerian Pidgin accent. I was so distraught, because I felt like, here I am having this identity and thinking that I'm from a place. But in a sense, just because I'm from there doesn't mean that I feel like I'm fully from there. So sometimes you move because you're trying to find a place or people that might resonate for you in different ways as well.
Amazing. We need to wrap up because we're out of time. But Z,
Yes.
your parting shots, all right, with regards to this subject, especially in view of your role as a community builder, what would be your parting shots, your piece of advice, your words of encouragement to immigrants in the UAE or expats in the UAE and people in Africa looking to relocate and the likes?
I would say that, not to be too politically correct or, you know, covering things up, I would say that it's been you will have a good time. You know, moving has its own struggles, but the struggle is not the end, it's the phase. And don't see it as a time where you need to get things done. Just see it as transformation. The journey is not linear. It's like this table, you know, there are different markings to it, different stories. That is you. You are on your own journey. Do not compare yourself to anybody. Two things can be true at the same time. You are trying to transform yourself. Sow the seed of networking. Go out there. Do not isolate yourself, and just love on your own journey, man. There's nothing to it. Love your journey. Love where you are at the moment, and find a good community like Black women in Abu Dhabi.
I see you.
I love that.
And of course, your parting shot, conclusively.
Yes, I would say that wherever you go, whatever your path is, try and remember that you are still an individual.
True.
You have a path. You know, you came on this earth for a reason. And wherever you choose to live out that path, do it with all of your heart. Whether you have a lot of money or you have little money, there is a courtesy in just saying hello to somebody, courtesy in just listening to someone. You never know what's going on. You mentioned about how, you know, we have this hierarchy and social status that happens. If it's the hairdresser that you're going to go and do your hair, talk to her. You know, every human being has a story. You have your story. So as you're making your story, make sure you connect. Make sure you look after yourself. But remember that at the end of the day, it is your path. And whatever you make of your life is what you make of your life. Now, obviously, it's great to have the support of other people, but be selfish in some ways, in that way, and make the best of it. You know, there will be highs. You will have a moment of reckoning when you live internationally. They call it the dark night of the soul. You will get there, right? But there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's always a light, and reach out when you need to, because people do care and they want to help.
Thank you so much. Titilayo, has been an amazing conversation. I felt like I had two beautiful women in front of me and I had a very amazing conversation. Thank you so much for coming to the show.
Thank you.
And to Zipporah, thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you.
You've been totally amazing. I see what you do on socials. So I want people to connect with you and what you do. So We'll have that displayed on the screen, of course.
Sure.
And thank you for what you do. Of course, I cannot say more than that, because I think you encourage a lot of people, and you keep Black people going. And that's very outstanding, I would say. And thank you again. So maybe the immigrant dream is not just about where you go, but who you become in the process. And today we have been able to see that transformation often comes with a cost most people never talk about. If you actually enjoyed this conversation and what we do here, kindly subscribe, share, and leave a comment, as your support is really appreciated. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.